Today we're going to bend the rules a little bit and have a look at great and horrible house rules. Welcome to the Attic Dungeon. My name is Sam, and whether you like big criticals or want more exciting death saves, I'm here to help you with everything. So, today we're going to be talking about house rules. Many tables employ house rules, and it's wonderful because Dungeons & Dragons actively encourages its community to change rules that they don't like to improve upon your home experience. I mean, it's your game of Dungeons & Dragons. If you want to customize things, go ahead, and if the table agrees with it, use them. I'm going to talk about rules that I absolutely like and rules that I absolutely hate. And I think I'll start with the rule that is the most popular house rule in my direct environment, and that is our alternative critical rule. You know how critical hits work in Dungeons & Dragons. If you hit a natural 20 when swinging with a weapon, for example, you get to roll the damage die twice and add your modifier once. So your D12 Great Axe with your 16 Strength Barbarian, 2D12 plus 3. There you go. Now the issue is that this 2D12 plus 3 combination can give you any damage in between 5 all the way up to, 27. And the 27 is alright, but when you do that wonderful critical hit, you don't want to roll 5 damage. Nobody wants you to do that. Even the DM doesn't want you to roll 5 damage on your critical hit. So what we do for weapons and for spells with an attack roll as well, when you crit, you get to automatically raise the first die, so to speak, to its maximum damage. So for a Great Axe, you immediately get 12 damage, and then you roll the second d12 and add your modifier damage. If you're doing a spell that does, 2d10 of damage, you get the first d10, you roll the second one. You get the idea. Stuff like Smite and Sneak Attack don't get involved in this because you're already going to get double Smite, double Sneak Attack. More than enough damage to get you going there. But this way, your base critical value will at the very least be above average. And if you roll well, you'll have that wonderful juicy crit that you really want. Now the thing is, of course, the Dungeon Master also uses this rule. Every good house rule, in my personal opinion, should work for both players and Dungeon Masters. If it doesn't, it's probably not a good house rule for Dungeons & Dragons 5e. There are systems where the enemy characters don't operate on the same rules necessarily as the player characters, or not completely, but in D&D they kind of do. So a house rule, especially combat house rule, should work for both sides. So our rule means that you get to do big juicy crits, but if the DM rolls a crit against you, it's going to be very painful as well. And that's good. It adds to the danger because I do agree with quite a few people who think that in 5e, if you play half smart, your characters are never in any real danger during combat, really, unless the dice are screwing you over all night long, which is perfectly possible. So this adds a bit of oomph to criticals for both Dungeon Masters and players, and it is a generally well-received rule at every table that I've played it at. So yay for crits. That was my best house rule. Now let's go to the worst house rule, or type of house rule in this case, that I've ever seen, and it concerns critical fumble tables. What this is when you attack with a weapon mainly, and you roll a 1, also known as the fumble, of course, that means you automatically miss. That's the basic rule. But then there's tables, Dungeon Masters, that think it's fun to make something called a critical fumble table. Namely, you roll the 1, okay, you roll again on usually a d20 table, and there the roll will decide what other bad stuff will happen to you on top of already missing. And the stuff in the table can vary wildly. I've had stuff like, you drop your weapon, which is not a big issue. You just pick it up with your free item interaction and you continue. But I've also had stuff like you stun yourself for 1 round, which is horrible. You knock yourself on the head and you stun yourself for a full round. That could mean you're dead. You throw your weapon 30 feet into a random direction. How even? How? Most of the weapons that you wield can't even be thrown that far. You could throw your hand axe further than when you actually throw it as a weapon. That's just absurd. Your great axe could suddenly fly through the room, not hitting anything though. You do damage to yourself, damage to an ally next to you. You know, general bad stuff. The reason I think this is bad is manifold. First off, missing an attack sucks. Plain and simple, it's not fun. It's part of the game and it makes sense, but it's not fun. So when you're already in the zone that you're missing your action or part of your action, if you're at higher level and you have extra attack, you have another attack to make up. But if you're playing a rogue, for example, you only have one attack unless when you're dual wielding. And unless when you're dual wielding, let's not trail off too far. And then missing is already quite punishing. I don't need to be stunned, damaged, knocked prone has also been in there, throw my weapon or whatever on top of that, because then you're not just making it clear that I failed this turn, but you're quite potentially also messing up my next turn. If you're the one with the getting stunned or knocked prone or whatever, stuff like that, or throwing away the weapon so that you have to run behind it and go and pick it up, doesn't just mess up this turn, it also takes away your next turn. So here you are getting punished for 2 turns for rolling a fumble, which is something you have no control over absolutely whatsoever. So that's the one part why I don't like it. The second part is that this completely leaves out casters. Maybe not completely. I mean, casters also have spells with attack rolls, obviously, and you could say, yes, you fail your spell casting and you throw your spell focus 30 feet away. Oh no, the shenanigans. But any caster worth its salt at that point will say, sure, I'll just take spells that require a saving throw. I can never fumble on my spells. I can never be stunned for a round by the Silas system. I am now God. It's not God, but you get the idea. It's a house rule that does not affect all characters equally. The critical one does. Your caster can choose to take attack roll spells to take advantage of this critical hit concept. Yay them. But in this case, they can actively choose not to get nailed over by the critical fumble table by never casting an attack roll spell. There you go. It only affects martial characters and it doesn't affect them all equally. A fighter is going to be most affected here because they have, let's say in a level 11 fighter has 3 attacks, you action search for that great 6 attack, maybe you even got haste, 7 attacks. You're going to roll a 1 somewhere in there and your entire turn is going to get screwed over by that. Yep, I can see the paralysis coming in from a mile away. As opposed to the rogue who only has 1 attack, so less chances, less occurrences of rolling the 1, versus the monk to whom half of the table would possibly not apply because dropping your weapon is really hard when your weapon is your fists. It's a horrible rule. And in the same... No, actually that's a different rule and I'm going to take that one as my next rule. So, I hate critical fumble tables. They do not work. They unbalance the game. If your DM insists on using those, there's 3 things you can do. 1, get another table. Honestly, I don't need DMs who enforce critical fumble tables in my neighborhood. Especially, don't just walk away, but reason with them. Give them this explanation. If they still think it's fun, A, go to another table. B, play a halfling. There you go, play a halfling fighter. Use that racial that allows you to reroll those 1s. That way, your 1 in 20 chance becomes a 1 in 400 chance, and that's already a lot more bearable. 3, as I already said, play a spellcaster, only work with saves, and laugh in the DM's face about how the fumble table is never a thing for you. There you go. Kind of in the same boat, but not completely, are called shots for me. Cold shots is not a mechanic that is in 5e. Basically, you can tell the DM, I'm going to target that body part. They will usually raise the difficulty of the roll, and if you hit, you get an extra effect. That all sounds fun and great until you realize that the Dungeon Master can also use this. Your archer can headshot, yes, but so can the infinite armies of kobold archer that your Dungeon Master has. So, while this can be a fun rule, and maybe there are implementations that work better, this rule is always in the advantage of the Dungeon Master because he has more creatures and he doesn't care about getting headshot. You do. Your elf archer really does care about getting headshot and potentially dying from that. Dungeon Master doesn't care if Cobalt number 35,528 dies to a headshot. So it's less bad than the critical fumble tables, but it's still not a good house rule. The 5e system was not made for called shots. Now, enough breaking down stuff. Let's put a good rule on the table again. I really like hidden death saves. The way this works is that when you have to roll a death save, you only show the Dungeon Master. You don't show the rest of the table. Keep it secret. Why? It's easy for a party to metagame around the fact that you made your save. You go down, you roll your first save, you make it. Okay, good. So you're on 1 success, no failures. We'll spend this entire round killing an orc because we know you're safe for this round. And that is not how dying works, ladies and gentlemen. When somebody is dying, you see the wounds, you see the magic, the scars, the burns on the face, whatever. You don't go like, I think Bob will be alright for another round. How about I go and smash in that orc's head over there? No, if a party member is dying, you want to save them. And keeping death save secret promotes that idea, because you don't know if he saved, if he failed, if he critically failed, even if he has 2 death saves already. So this discourages metagaming, encourages saving party members, and if your party members choose to ignore it, yes, it increases the chance of you dying, which is also kind of good. As I said, dying is really hard in 5e, so I don't mind the rule that kind of grittifies death in general. Then, next up, another bad one that you should not do, has to do with initiative. Now, initiative is a very simple system. You roll, you add your modifier, there you are. I've seen tables that don't like to spend time on initiative, that put people in order. Like if you're sitting in seat number 1, you'll go first and so on. Great, saves time, go for it if it works for your table. The one issue that I have though, I've also heard of games, I've read about games where initiative is redone every round. The Dungeon Master and the players maybe even are convinced that it's not a static number, which I can kind of agree on, sure, but that it should change every round because you might react faster or whatnot, this and that. That is going to slow down combat immensely. I agree with the fact that not everybody's quick or slow all the time, but I mean, if you take into account that a round is 6 seconds for every character and a fight lasts, 6-7 rounds, you've spent 42 seconds fighting in game. So yeah, you're going to be fine. For 42 seconds, I think I can be the fast guy. Don't slow combat down that horribly with this alternative initiative rule. Really don't. Next one isn't really a house rule, but it's good practice, and it concerns summons. A good rule for summons is that you try to group them and potentially pre-roll them, actually. Let's take the Necromancer as an example. The Necromancer is one of those iconic class that works with summons, and it's cute. It starts out with 2 or 3 skeletons, but in the end you can have 20 skeletons walking about, and you have to manage them and roll them. While everybody else is taking their turns, roll your skeleton attacks already. So when your turn is there, you can say, okay, my wizard does this, he casts, I don't know, Death Laser 25 at the orc. My 26 skeletons are doing this and this, and this is the damage. Why is that great? Again, you don't bog down combat. Summons, as fun as they are, I like the concept of a good summoner, I really do. They slow down combat by adding bodies to the table. They do. So, as a player, I think it's your honest responsibility to try and prevent bogging down combat because you have an army of 25 skeletons running about. Simple as that. And there we are, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, that are all the rules that I wanted to talk about today. I wanted to give you some ideas on how house rules can or cannot work. If you don't agree with me, that's okay. Just leave a comment down below. Start a lovely discussion with me. I'm sure you'll convince me of your superiority. No, just kidding. As always, I'm up for a chat. I'm up for commenting. And hopefully, I'll see you all in 2 weeks in the Attic Dungeon.